Starmer urged to adopt contribution as his new buzzword. Desperate efforts to stabilize Labour. An influential think tank has been pushing the PM to adopt the term as a way of countering criticism about the government's lack of direction. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is said to be considering it to underpin her looming budget, which many fear will include tens of billions of pounds more in tax rises. Sir Keir is often berated as a shapeshifter, having tacked to the left to win the battle to succeed Jeremy Corbyn and then abandoned a swath of promises. The Premier has laid out a bewildering array of milestones and missions for his administration. But even close allies are not clear about his guiding philosophy. When he was accused of moving to the right during an internal party row in 2020, Sir Keir notoriously insisted, "There is no such thing as Starmerism and there never will be." A paper from think tank Labour Together, previously run by Sir Keir's powerful Chief of Staff Morgan McSweeney, has made the latest attempt to define the government's purpose, amid dire polls suggesting the PM faces being trounced by reform at the next election. The report says the party should root itself in an ethic and expectation of contribution. The actions we take that make other people better off. This can be work, care, volunteering, paying taxes, or helping out in your community. These acts are the basis of reciprocity and solidarity. The paper, written by Chief Policy Advisor Morgan Wild, said, "Actions we take for others, in the anticipation that they will take them for us." The report warned Labour must meet the public where they are, and argued that contribution is the main thing they mean by fairness. They believe that to get something out of the country you have to put something in. They do not believe the state is doing its part, it added. Labour needs to deliver to change their minds, but a politics of contribution would mean much more than delivery. The state would shift focus towards enabling, rewarding and expecting people to contribute. The report urged Sir Keir to stop the pretense that the public will support a welfare system they often see little benefit from themselves. It suggested turning universal credit into a minimum income guarantee, while having a social insurance top. Other ideas include short-term unemployment insurance, better family and care entitlements, and higher contributory pensions. Mooting a theoretical example of Alice, a small business owner who is advised to pay herself in dividends and keep money in the business to minimize her tax bill. The report said the tax code should be simplified. Noting that such entrepreneurs fuel the economy, the paper added, perhaps the most important thing to do is tax them as little as possible. The Labour Together proposals also talk about a fictional asylum seeker called Isaac, an Eritrean with post-traumatic stress disorder. The report said rather than leaving him in an asylum hotel, he should be granted refugee status for 6 months and allowed to work. That would be highly controversial, as critics would view it as encouraging more people to cross the channel in search of a better life. According to The Times, senior ministers are keen on the contribution mantra, although others prefer opportunity as a buzzword. In a foreword to the report, former Cabinet Minister Alan Milburn and Matthew Upton, Labour Together's executive director, said the connection between what people put in and what they get out has all but disappeared. They said a paradigm shift was needed to avoid Labour becoming irrelevant. And for more on this story, we're going to go now to our political correspondent, who is standing by in the very heart of London, Westminster. So, Alex, this is quite a dramatic development. Yes, it is. And it's a sign of how Labour are really struggling to come up with any sort of coherent policy offer to the electorate at the moment, that they're going back to basics. Going back to first principles and saying, well, actually, we need to try and work out what our values are, what we stand for, what we believe in. And they've settled on this idea of contribution, basically that if you contribute to society, you should get something out of it in return. Now, the idea is that people want something more than just benefits from the state. They want to contribute, they want to give something back, and that could be through working, raising a family, caring for other people, volunteering in your community, paying taxes, even helping the police and the criminal justice system. All of those things would qualify you, according to this report, to receive something back from the state. Now, what's interesting though, is that it's quite a departure for Labour, isn't it? Traditionally, it's always been seen as being about solidarity. You know, we pay our taxes and that's how we fund the National Health Service. We pay our taxes and that's how we fund schools. We pay our taxes and that's how we fund public services. This is about a more individualistic ethic, and it's significant that this report has been written by Labour Together, which is effectively Starmer's personal think tank. It's chaired by Morgan McSweeney, who is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. It's effectively his alter ego when it comes to thinking about policy ideas and what the country should be doing. So this is coming directly from the top. Just to explain, though, for people who don't understand the kind of background detail, what exactly does this mean in practice? What sort of policies might we see emerge from this thinking? Well, the report talks about 2 key principles. One is a minimum income guarantee for everybody, regardless of whether or not they're working, whether or not they're able to contribute. But then on top of that, a social insurance element which rewards people for contributing to society. Now that could mean various things. It could mean if you're a full-time carer, if you're on a low income, if you have kids, if you're working, if you're paying taxes. All of those things could be added up to reward people for contributing to society. The idea is that that would be fairer than the current system, which means that everybody gets the same amount of money regardless of whether or not they're contributing. Now, as ever with these reports, we don't know how much influence it's going to have over the Prime Minister, but clearly he is looking for a way, along with his party, to move on from what's dominated Labour's agenda for the last few years, which is essentially talking about inequality, talking about redistribution, talking about taking from the rich and giving to the poor, and that hasn't worked for them. It hasn't resonated with voters. And with Reform UK gaining so much traction at the polls at the moment, they need to find some other way to try and reset their agenda and appeal to the electorate, and this could be it. What about the wider context, though? We obviously have a general election looming potentially within the next year. There's lots of talk about electoral reform. Does this play into that at all? Well, it may do. I mean, again, as we've discussed before on the show, the whole idea of electoral reform and changing the voting system doesn't really resonate with many voters. Most people simply don't understand it and they don't really care. But this is one way, I suppose, of trying to reset the debate to say, look, we're not interested in just winning elections and getting into power. We're interested in creating a fairer society. And a fairer society is one that rewards people for contributing, one that makes sure that everybody has access to decent jobs, decent housing, decent education, decent healthcare. If you contribute to that, if you contribute to society, then you will get something back. Whether or not that message resonates with voters remains to be seen. But, as I say, the Prime Minister is clearly looking for a way out of the very difficult situation that he finds himself in right now, and this could be it. Many thanks indeed, Alex, for all that detail. Really appreciate your insight. Cheers.